Hey, what's up, Elevation Youth? I'm Gina, and today for Real Talk, we are meeting someone really special. Her name is Charlie Blythe. And not only is she a mom, a pastor, a fashion designer, but she is also part of an amazing organization called A21 that fights human trafficking all over the world. Let's jump into some questions with her. How have you been? I'm so glad to talk to you today.
Good to meet you properly. And
yeah. I don't know. Okay, chances are you're not going to remember this at all, but I'm from South Africa, and we
both strong accents.
Yeah, we met at a Hillsong Pretoria youth conference. It must have been like 7 years ago. You and Dan did like I
remember
young couple teaching, and we just met like in passing. So I'm actually really excited to talk to you today because I don't think we got to speak a whole lot.
Oh, really good to meet you properly. Yeah, wow. So you obviously are not in Pretoria anymore?
I am not. No, I'm on the other side of the world now. Thank you so much for your time, first off, because I know that you have so much going on. You're like literally saving the world. Like it's amazing. I'm really just excited to talk to you. I know that you got some of the questions, but I want to just like talk a little bit about who you are, what you've done, because I don't know if a lot of our teenagers even know what impact A21 has and what you do, and how you are literally like changing the world from all different aspects. So like, I guess my first question to you would be, how did you get involved with A21? Now, A21 is like a anti-human trafficking organization. That feels like a huge thing to take on. How did you get involved with that?
Yeah, so for the people that don't know, like you said, it's a global anti-trafficking organization. We're in about 14 different countries now. It has grown. I've been on staff, coming up to about 9 years, and it's gone from like a couple of officers to this global organization, which is just as incredible. But yeah, like I said, been on staff 19. Sorry, not 19 years. I've been on staff about 9 years. 19, I'd have started very young otherwise. I'm not that old. Been on staff like 9 years, and basically, from a young age, I saw the poor, I saw the needy, I saw the marginalized. I was going out with my mum to Thailand to work with refugee children. I think my first trip was when I was 13 years old. She worked out there. So I was seeing need, I was seeing, the forgotten, the lost, the marginalized. And I knew I had like always this heart from a young age. I wanted to work with vulnerable people or just people that needed help, and so I would go on these trips with her. And then I became a Christian at 19. My heart just broke even more. I can't really explain it, but I was like, I'm sold. I'm going to find a job that I can just help people in. And obviously I was 19, I had no experience at this point. I'd just come out of college, and I just started volunteering at this homeless shelter with young people. They actually offered me a job a little bit later, and I started working with young people with like sort of addiction problems, habits, in gangs, all that sort of stuff. And they sort of put me on my training course, got my degree with them. And from then on, I guess passions just sort of directed me in a certain avenue, because I started studying a lot around organised crime and gangs, which took me on to working for an organisation that worked with women in prison. And that's where I was working just before A21. I was working with girls that were in prison, that were trapped in gang-related activity. And I just happened to be a part of Hillsong. I was 23, and my senior pastor, Kathy, she said, "Do you want to come to Ukraine with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, great." So I put in my annual leave with my job. I go to Ukraine, and I bump into Kane, who obviously is the founder of A21. And I'm dead nervous, because I've like never met this lady. It's someone I hear speaking in our church. I think she's incredible, really inspiring. And she's sort of like, casually, "What do you do?" So I'm like, I work with women in prison, like girls in gangs. And like my job is to work with the organised crime groups and getting the girls exited out of the gangs that they're trapped in. And she's literally like, "Do you want to work for me?" And I'm like, "Pardon?" She's like, "Well, we're looking for someone to start the London office. Like, we need someone to start the UK office." And I'm like,
gosh.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could talk about that. In long story short, guys, a month later I was working for A21, starting the UK office. So
Oh my
crazy
gosh,
story.
that is so amazing.
Yeah.
And it started at a young age. What's so encouraging is like your heart at such a young age. Did you say you were, how old were you? 13?
When I first went to Thailand, yeah. So I grew up
Yeah.
though in a home where, I don't know, and maybe some of you can relate. My mum's a pastor. You know, we always grew up with foster children living with us, always taking in people, always volunteering at the soup kitchen with my mum. You know, I was always around need. And then obviously, yeah, so from 13 I went to Thailand and did those trips. So yeah, young age.
It's amazing. It's so cool how God will like plant something in your heart at a young age, and then you see it manifest later on as you grow and as you get involved with other things. That's really awesome. All right, I had some questions because I know a lot of people often think that like the term slavery is kind of like of the past, which we know is not true. And human trafficking especially is one of the fastest growing criminal industries in the world, right? Why do you think it's still rampant? Why do you think it's such a fast growing criminal industry?
Yeah, I think the first thing just to mention here is human trafficking is our modern day slavery. So the two words are interlinked. So you're right, when people hear the word slavery, they think it was something that was abolished a couple of 100 years ago, but all that's happened is it's sort of evolved in what it looks like, the shape that it's taken. But human trafficking ultimately is our modern day slavery. And listen, the reason why it's the fastest growing crime is because this is a crime that is happening behind closed doors, but also in plain sight. And what's happening is we're actually not treating human beings like people, we're treating them like commodities. And I don't know, you know, what you know about commodities, but obviously there's something that can be used over and over again. And when we talk about being the fastest growing crime, it's actually the second largest organized crime. And that's actually only second to drug trafficking. And the reason why it's catching up very quick is because if you think about it like this, and this is the best way I can explain it, Gina, if I was going to give you, let's say, a pill, an illegal pill, which I would never do, a drug, but you were to have that, and I was going to give you one pill, you went out for a night, how many times could you use that pill? It's not a trick question. I give you a pill once, right? You could use that once, right? Yeah. And then it's used, it's done. Whereas with a person, you can buy and sell and use, buy and sell and use, buy and sell and use over and over again. This is using people like a commodity. And that is why it's the fastest growing crime. That's why it's the second largest organized crime. And that's why there's over 40 million people trapped in modern slavery today.
What type of trafficking do you see the most of?
Yeah, there's lots of different types of trafficking, and obviously it's going to vary depending on what country you're in, obviously, hugely. But I think I'm based in the UK here, you're in USA right now, and it would definitely probably be forced labor and sexual exploitation. So sex trafficking, that would be the highest there. So sexual exploitation, sex trafficking is fairly obvious what that is. But with forced labor, you're thinking of things like car washes, nail bars, manufacturing. I don't know, here it's like cannabis cultivation, very much in the paving industry or tarmacking industry, all those types of places.
And like, what's the youngest age group you see involved in that?
Very young. So the thing about trafficking is it obviously has now boundaries when it comes to age. In some of the countries we work with, I mean, the worst, Thailand, you know, we're seeing very, very young children being exploited. But it really varies. A lot of the time we're talking about children. If you look at the statistics, the highest percentage is women and children. So yeah, will vary in every country. Obviously in India, you've got like literally little children being sold on a daily basis, that sort of stuff.
My gosh, this is like such a heavy thing to talk about, but it's also such a necessary thing to talk about because it's a reality, right? And so many of us are blessed enough not to have to face this every day, but it's still happening all around us, to people that look like us, to people that don't look like us. And so I know that it's a very heavy thing for you. What do you feel like is one of the hardest parts of what you do, because you're trying to fight for people who can't fight for themselves.
Yeah.
But I know that probably also takes a toll on you.
Yeah.
What's the hardest part of the job?
Yeah, I got asked this the other week actually, and I was trying to have a think about it, because I feel like the obvious answer to you should be like, oh, you know, seeing what I see on a regular basis. But if I'm really honest with you, I think the hardest part is it's not being overwhelmed or overburdened by what I do and that sort of stuff. I think my hardest thing and my biggest concern, maybe I should say, or worry, is ever becoming underwhelmed, because I've been in the charity sector since I was 19. I'm 34 now. I've been with A21 9 years. I've I'm in quite a higher managerial role now, so I'm not on the front line, so I'm a bit more removed from the actual frontline work. And I think when you've been in the charity sector, or when you've worked with people for so long, I'm just going to be real with you, it's easy to become compassion fatigued, or maybe like physically or just emotionally exhausted. Or I know I've found myself in the past getting this reduced ability to emphasize. And so for me, the hardest thing is never letting a story become a statistic, and not allowing, you know, what's actually happening just to sort of fade into numbers or anything like that. It's making sure that I'm just as passionate and excited about what I do as I was the very first day that I started. So I think that's the biggest thing for me. The hardest bit about my job is just making sure every day I'm asking God to break my heart again for what breaks his. Not, you know what I mean? When you've seen a lot, it can take a toll on you, and you can just become quite, not glass-eyed to it, but you know, you do statistics and all this sort of stuff to overtake the stories, and at the end of the day, that's not what it's about. So I'd say that's the hardest thing for me. It used to be becoming overwhelmed, and I think in my younger days it was not being overwhelmed, not taking everything I heard home, being able to switch off. And now I think it's just making sure constantly I'm asking God to break my heart again.
I think that relates to so many of our teenagers who are like bombarded by news and social media and everything that's happening, everything that sucks in the world is like thrown at us through our phones every single day. And what you said is like not being underwhelmed is so important, because we still want to be able to care for people. We still want our heart to break for the people who are being treated unfairly. How do you actually like find space to either disconnect or refuel or rejuvenate so that you can continue to like pour yourself out and actually care again? How do you do that? And how would a teenager do that?
I think it's so important. I mean, in my line work, I have to find a way to switch off. Like I have to, when I get home, I have to be able to switch off my phone. You know, I used to be that phone junkie, that email junkie, that I want to be the best in my work and in my job, so I'm going to answer emails at 11:30 at night, and whatever the problem, I'm going to answer it straight away, you know. But now I'm like, that's just not healthy. That is just not a healthy lifestyle. And for me, like, it's important when I come in from my job that I disconnect and that I can switch off. And so things for me, just little boundaries, like not having my phone on me after a certain time, not answering emails at all hours, trying to sort of keep work in working hours. Obviously there's allowances for that and there's exceptions and stuff, and then just doing things, which is what I've learned is not a waste of time, but it's actually really important, doing things that actually just involve no brain power for me. So like I'm a Netflix series binge watcher, like.
Okay,
and that's
what's your ultimate Netflix show? What's your ultimate show?
Oh gosh, there's so many, Gina. What a question. I mean, you name it, I've probably watched it. You know that, right? Like I just smashed them. What have we watched recently that I've watched on there? I mean, we have ones, I don't know, like I have ones that I watched with Dan that we watched together, and then I have like really more rubbishy ones so what have I just smashed? So I've done obviously like just did Ginny and Georgia, watched that one. When there's nothing much on, obviously I do like Paul Dark. I've obviously watched what was the one with the chess recently?
The Queen Gambit, that was so good.
Gambit, yeah, and
Are you like when you want to detach from work, you don't want to have like these deep?
No, oh gosh, no.
Want to watch like all the fellow stuff and like heartbreak and
I come in, yeah, it's like, how was your day? Like, I do not want to talk about my day. So yeah, it's definitely switching off, disconnecting, all that sort of stuff. And I think it's really important. And like you're saying with young people, if all you're doing is scrolling through social media, watching news, all that stuff, like you're filling your brain with that, you're going to have little room to fill your brain with anything else. And it's not going to be good for you. It's not healthy. It's not productive at all.
Yeah. Wow. I know that, like, as you were saying, a lot of your job is very weighty. And what do you actually love about your job? Like, what's the most fulfilling part of your job? Because you're obviously in this because it fuels you, it keeps you going.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, first and foremost, it genuinely is always going to be seeing lives changed and transformed and completely restored. Like, there's nothing like getting that email that's like a breaking news email, like this survivor's been rescued, their lives been restored. And then just hearing amazing stories of people like find hope again. I think that's the biggest one for me, because we hear about rescues, but then when you actually find someone starting to dream again, or they've got a job, or just those things that we take for granted, like, it genuinely is an incredible feeling to know that you've played a part in helping someone's life completely transform and change for the better. And then I think the second thing for me, and this is what I love uniquely about A21, more than any other, charity that I worked with, is I just love how we make it our mission to help everyday people realize that they can make a difference, that they have a part to play. It's like part of our mission is to just rally people. And I love that about what we do. And I love seeing just everyday, ordinary people have this sort of revelation that, oh, I can actually do something about this injustice. So often when we hear about injustices like human trafficking or whatever, poverty, you name it, we get told statistics and stuff, and all that happens is those statistics just overwhelm us, but like I was just saying, statistics are pretty dehumanizing, they're very desensitizing, they're very numbing. And so all that happens is a young person can listen to me, hear 40 million people are trapped in slavery, and go away and go, well, I'm 16, I'm 17, what on earth can I do? Nothing. And so instead of them doing anything, they just do nothing, and they become totally overwhelmed by the problem. But I love that A21 gives people that like avenues to do something. They make them have this revelation that actually you can play your part in making a difference. You can be part of the answer. And I love that. I love just seeing everyday ordinary people get involved.
So what would you say to like a middle schooler or a high schooler that is like totally moved by this, knows they need to get involved? How would they partner with A21 to actually do something in their community?
I mean, there's so many ways that people can get involved. I think if you're a high schooler, for example, then you should check out some of our curriculum, because the amount of people, I used to go into schools across the UK, and now we just get the young people to do it because they do such a better job. When they become passionate, young people attract young people, don't they? Young people inspire young people. When they're passionate about something, when they get behind a cause, like, they can ignite it like no one else can. So like you could go into schools, you could deliver presentations, you can get some of our awareness material and do stuff within your schools. You can get your teacher on board. We do something called Train the Trainer, and the teachers and the facilitators can educate them to educate your students, sort of thing. All this stuff that you can do. So you could do it within your school. Obviously you might be able to do something in church. I mean, one of the biggest things that you can do obviously is raising awareness. So many people that still do not know. So I would say things like education, awareness and prevention are absolutely key, and every young person can play their part in that. So it's just looking at, what does that look like for you? What's in your hand? Who's in your sphere? And then doing it. So whether that's school, college, university, church, I don't know, your neighbors, whoever that is, you can raise awareness, you can educate them, because education leads to prevention, which is so key. And with A21, obviously there's opportunities if you did want to volunteer. I don't know where you're based, but obviously we've got offices in America, and I know people go over there and do gap years. Here in the UK, we have volunteering opportunities. Obviously, we run off fundraising from the public. So if that's something that you're really good at, then I don't know, get running for a cause or something like that. So just so many ways. And obviously everyone can pray. You can definitely send up some prayers if you need it. Yeah. So there's so many ways.
What would you say is like one of the rescue stories that you feel like you'll carry with you for the rest of your life? Like, this is something that inspires you, it reminds you of what you're doing. Do you have a story like that?
Yeah. You know, it's not a particular story. I'll share one time. I hear loads of stories all the time. They're all very, very moving, and they always stick with me. But I think one of the key moments I remember personally for me was about 4 years ago, and we went on our global staff retreat, and we all had to give presentations about our countries. And at the time I was the UK country manager, and I was just about to go up, and the Thai country manager went before me, and I just was not ready for it. And she just gets up and she's like, I just want to show you the reality of what we're dealing with at the moment here in Thailand. And she gets up, and there's this footage of these, like, I mean, I've got a son that's 3, and they would have been maybe 6 months, a year older than him, and they were dancing on tables in this bar, these 3-4-year-old little Thai children. They were dancing on these tables in these bars, and they, obviously around these men, and everyone was just watching them. They're in just little like nappies and pants, you know. They can't talk, they're not, you know, they're like toddlers. And I remember seeing it and just, I felt like I was physically going to throw up, because like I said, you know, I'm in the UK. Obviously I'm involved in a lot of rescue side of things, but not necessarily children on a regular basis. And I saw it and I just felt sick. And then she goes on and she shares in the next slide how they'd all been rescued, how they're with our team, how they'd come into our child advocacy centre, how they brought justice to the traffickers that had taken these children, and all this different stuff. And it was just, I don't know, for some reason that I've never forgot that video of them dancing on tables. And then the next slide where they were sat in this little room with each other, you know, with crayons in their hands, which is what they should be doing at that age. And I think for me, that was quite like one of those moments that just really like, oh my gosh, this is horrendous. Like, what is a 3-year-old doing on a tabletop, you know, like with money in a pants? Is just that sort of stuff. For me is what. It's
amazing that you're also seeing the rescuing happen.
Yeah.
And that it's not just all devastating news all the time. It's breaking news, we've made a rescue. It's like we've actually seen something come of this hard work. And I'm sure those moments are so enlightening for you and so encouraging for you to know that there is hope, right? To know that like you're fighting the good fight and there is something on the other side. I'm sure those moments are so amazing for you.
They are, and they spur you on, you know. That's what gives you the hope, because you know it is possible. You know, like it is possible for every single one of these people to find freedom, and it is possible for them to be able to dream and hope again. So, yeah.
Well, just a couple more things. What do you feel like a teenager would need to be aware of when it comes to human trafficking? Because it's not just a problem in Thailand, it's not just a problem in the UK, and it's usually younger people because they're vulnerable. What would you want a teenager to know?
Yeah, well, I think, Gina, you just hit the nail on the head when you just said then, because obviously they're vulnerable because of their age. So that's just the default. That's why it's important just to stress that to start with. Like when it comes to exploitation, slavery, human trafficking, why does it happen in every city, country and continent? Because you're going to find vulnerable people in every city, country and continent, and traffickers just prey on the vulnerable. So a lot of people can sit back and go, oh, that, you know, that would never happen to me. Well, actually, if me and you would sit here and have an honest conversation, I'm pretty sure that both of us will have been at some point. You might be, I don't know your certain circumstances right now, you might be vulnerable right now for some reason, or we will be in the future. And so you will find vulnerable people in every city, country and continent. Therefore, you will find trafficking in every city, country and continent. And that's not to scare anyone at all. It's just to make you aware. Yeah, it's to be aware of this. And by default, if you are young, you are vulnerable. And because you're not yet an adult, that just makes you vulnerable. So I think what I would say is, don't just think this is some faraway problem. It actually does happen on your doorsteps, like I said, not to scare you, but to educate yourself, make yourself aware, like find out a bit more about it in your city, in your county, in your country, so you're actually aware about this. And also just remember, my biggest advice to young people at the moment is, we live in a digital world. I mean, COVID has put the whole world, we were already a digital world, but we've gone to new levels now, right? And so it just gives traffickers other means of preying on people, on young people especially. And so I would just say, just be aware that this is one of the tools they use is online. So make sure you do know who you're actually talking to. Is that person behind the screen the person that you think they are? Don't share personal information with people that you don't know. All that sort of stuff that you might think, oh, Charlie, we know that, but actually they're very clever. These are organized criminal gangs. This is organized activity. They are way smarter than you, I'm afraid. They are always one step ahead. And so it's important for you to educate yourself, make yourself aware, find out what the country helpline is in your country. You never know when you might want to report it. You might want to ask a question. Always know that number, that sort of thing. So that's the sort of thing I would just say to a teenager is, educate yourself, find out the facts, and know who to call.
That's great. That's really good. Like you said earlier, like education is somewhat freeing. So the more you know about something, the more confident you can be in knowing where you stand, knowing who to call, knowing what to look for, knowing how to help and to contribute. So even like saving the hotline number on your phone, or something like that, could be really, really helpful.
Absolutely.
Well, Charlie, you do so many things, right? You're with A21, you're at Hillsong, you're a mom, a wife, you have this amazing child's streetwear line, is that right? Young Cubs?
My passion project.
So cool. I'm like, you're the coolest woman. I'm like, I wish I could design something like that for little kids. It's so cool. And of course, you've got your relationships, your friendships, and there's just a whole bunch of juggling, and you're like amazing at all of it, which is so inspiring. What will you say to someone who has got a lot on their plate? I know that a lot of our teenagers have got soccer and football and relationship with their parents and their boyfriend or girlfriend and schoolwork and a job, and they've just got so much in their lives. How would you successfully juggle that? How do you do that? What's some advice?
Yeah, I think the first thing to say is just that, like, having a full life doesn't mean you need to live overwhelmed. And I think that was a big thing for me. Like, I thought the more I added to my plate, the more overwhelmed I was going to be. And I think it was with my son Knox, I remember saying to Dan, and when I went back to work after like 6 months, I went back to work, and I was like, oh, this is so overwhelming. I've got so much on, and I've got to do this. And then I come home and I've got to do this. And he was like, this is your life now. So you just got to adapt to it. Like, you're seeing it as an extra. This is, you can increase your capacity. This is your life now. This is the new normal. And I was like, oh yeah, like, this isn't going away. I'm going to be a working mom. Like, I'm going to be, and so it was like an adjusting the mindset. So I think for me, then since then, I've had to learn then to, how do I deal with a full life? How do I make this the best situation possible? Like, how can I win at having a full life? And so things like, sounds so simple, but like getting organized, having a schedule or a planner, whatever you want to call it, like, so vital. You cannot live a full life without having a calendar. Yes. You just can't. You got to be preparing in advance, getting those outfits the night before, like things like that. I'm on an operation tomorrow in an airport, and so like I've already put my outfit out because I've got to be up at 5 a.m. I've already got my breakfast ready, like literally, guys, and my bag is packed. I am ready for tomorrow because I've got to get my son to nursery. So I put his stuff out so Dan can take him to nursery whilst I'm not here, all that stuff. All I'm saying, get organized, get prepared. And then I would just say, like, focus on one thing at a time. Like, you become overwhelmed when everything is just like in front of you, and it's like, what am I doing now? What am I doing first? Which one takes priority? But just, focus on one thing at a time. Just get through whatever the most important thing is. That's why priority lists are so important. That's why it's so important to get organized. But yeah, I think everything's in your control. The other thing, as I've got older, to learn is it's your choice to say no. It's a very easy word to say. If life is too full, you can't do any more, you're feeling maybe a bit overwhelmed, say no to things. Like, that is in your control, that is in your power. And don't be ashamed to say
no to the right things.
Right.
Because I've seen a lot of people be like, I'm too busy, I've got too much, I'm going to stop coming to church, or I'm going to stop coming to group, or I'm going to, I don't know, stop reading my Bible. And it's like, no, the things that you need to survive in life, you need to keep. There are other things you can say no to. I can say no to the party. I can say no to hanging out with my friends on a Sunday night. There's different things, right?
Have a bit of wisdom there. Yeah, definitely. Being saying to people that aren't going to help you. And if things are impacting you, if they make you more productive, if they make you a better person in life, be saying yes to those things fully. And the other thing is ask for help. Like, there's no shame in that. Like, if life is full, reach out to people, get people around you to help you. Like, this life is not meant to be done on your own, and you are fortunate enough to have community there with you guys. You got the youth team there. Like, ask for help. Like, be reaching out to people, share it if you are struggling or anything like that. But yeah, those are my top tips. I think learn to say no, get organized, focus on one thing at a time, be prepared. Oh, and relax and chill.
Find chill. Love that.
You got to relax. Find a good Netflix. Yeah.
Okay, I do have one more question for you. You are a role model to so many people, and I know that not just in your community but globally, people look up to you. I look up to you for everything that you're doing and for what you're fighting for. But what would you say specifically to our teenage girls who want to achieve great things, who want to make a difference in the world, who believe that wrong should be made right, and really want to help people? You've done a lot of that. What would you say to a young teenage girl who wants to be like that and have that influence?
Yeah, I think number one, like, just embrace your own personal path. The only times that I've ever found myself going off track or wondering, is this what I should be doing, or how am I going to get to what I want to be doing, is when I've taken my eyes off my path and looked at other people. What are they doing? What's their timeline looking like? How are they getting on? What opportunities do they have? Gosh, it just leads to destruction and nothing helpful. So I would just say, number one, embrace your own personal path. And number two, take every opportunity that's given to you that you can. For example, if you want to make a difference and you wanted to go into, I don't know, maybe a job similar to me, like a social justice job, it's not going to land on your lap. You know what I mean? Like, things like gaining experience and volunteering for free, guys. I know it might suck, but it's important, you know what I mean, to get your foot in the door and stuff like that. So have conversations with people, reach out to people that, big thing for me is I'm really hot on, like, have you got mentors in your life, like people that inspire you, that you look up to, that you can learn from, that you can ask questions. Like, I have a lady in my world that is 30 years older than me, but I'm constantly just asking her questions. I'm like constantly sitting with her. How do you do this? How do you go about this? And she inspires me, she drives me. So have someone like that in your life, that's driving you, that's inspiring you, that you can go to. And and I would just say, like, step out, take risks. Like I said, take the opportunities. Don't worry about what other people are thinking or doing, what they're saying. Just keep your eyes on you and God, your personal path, and don't get discouraged if someone else has a different path to you or their success or anything. Like, God has a perfect path for you. And that's the thing that I feel like I wish I just didn't get sidetracked by other people. You know what I mean? It's terrible, isn't it? We're like, I know we've got our own dreams, hopes, aspirations, and then we're going for it, and then we just like, look at what they're doing. Oh, what are they doing? And look what they are. Oh, it's just, it's not good at all. So I would just say, focus on your own personal path, have good people around you, inspiring people around you, reach out to them, take opportunities, have conversations, have coffees with as many people that you can learn from as possible. Like, just constantly going up to people, even if they say no, well, you tried, you know what I mean? Like, reach out to that person on Instagram that really inspires you and say, like, what your top tips of wisdom. And if there's a leader in church that inspires you that you don't know, go up to them and say, can you mentor me? Can we go for coffee, or whatever that looks like? But just go for it.
I love that. I love that so much. Thank you so much just for spending time with us today. And thank you for everything that you're doing to make a difference in the world and like help some of the most vulnerable people. I think so many young people will watch this and learn about what you do and be inspired to do that in their communities, in their schools, maybe even one day in government or in an organization like 821 that are really making impact across the globe. So we're so grateful. Thank you so much for being with us.
Bye, guys.
Well, if that's the content that you've been waiting for, I can tell you we've got an exasperation of it, okay? Make sure you hit us with a like. Make sure you hit us with a little comment of some little love letters. We would love to receive a love letter from you. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, because if you miss out on any of these videos, then what are you doing with your life? Exactly. I'm waiting. Change my mind.